Let's Talk, getting to the root causes of important issues of the day. This on-air community forum believes your voice matters, not ours, and welcomes all thoughts and views without judgment. As much as possible, please join today's conversation by calling 415-663-8492 or 8317. And your hosts today are Shelley Rugg.
Hello.
Shelley Rugg and Stephen Herbert.
Hi there.
And I'm Paul Raffel. And yes, do give us a call. We're talking about populism today. You know how things are happening all over Europe and here and Philippines, and populist candidates have been voted in because we'll explore why. Anyway, so please do call with comments, opinions, judgments. You can have judgments. We can't. And when you call in, just let the phone ring. Then you'll hear this funny noise as I put you in the system. Wait until you hear me say you're on the air, and then turn down your radio. Give us a name of any kind, and please, above all, keep the language clean. This is live radio, so we need to appease the FCC at all times. So,
hey, Paul, I just have a question.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
it begins.
Can we allocate some time for me to talk about the award that was given to Sandusky, Ohio?
Of course.
Okay, just keep that on.
Of course.
Put that on the agenda.
No, you go ahead right now. Let's just do it at the top of the show and get it out of the way.
I thought maybe we'd do it when we were deep into the mire of
Sandusky,
Brazil.
Ohio, of course, is Stephen's native soil.
It won one of the best coastal small towns.
Coastal
of the
small
10.
Towns.
Yeah,
Ohio?
Sandusky, Ohio.
Interesting.
That's very nice.
It's not chopped liver.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
When will the sea level rise enough so it's a coastal town? This is a pre-prize, a pre-award.
Okay, with that thought, we'll go right into right-wing populism.
Well, right-wing. It doesn't have to be right-wing, of course.
That's true.
Populism is it's a nebulous term. Actually.
Can you help me understand it better?
It's the voice of the people. So really, it's sort of like, isn't that democracy? And you go, well, yeah, except what is the difference, Stephen?
Well, the difference is that it's not just the people, but it's the true people. They have the true
people,
the true mind. Yeah.
According to...
Well, there's the elite, and then there's the people that actually are really special people that know what's going on.
So that really explained it very well.
It didn't. Okay, you've got two sides. It's adversarial. You got two sides. You have the people, quote unquote, and then you have the elites.
The elites.
And actually, Trump is the playbook for it. Just think about what he's had.
Exactly.
What he's done. It's an absolute playbook.
And across Europe, there are 11 countries in Europe that have elected what are being called populist candidates, and mostly they're right-wingers. It's candidates. It's the political ideology that the people are being held down by the elites. They're being cheated by the elites, and the people rise up and elect anyone other than they're dissatisfied with the existing parties. Right. So Democrats and Republicans, remember not too long ago we were all saying, what's the difference, really? I mean, they're all in the pocket of corporations. So you have basically this sort of fascist thing going on around all of Europe, and what we would call fascist in the old days, which was corporations running government through politicians by paying them.
Oh, like America.
Well, exactly. So it was really a fascist democracy. Let's put it that way.
Draining the swamp seems to be a real common theme.
In quotes, draining the swamp. So dissatisfaction with the major parties. So, of course, the Democrats didn't recognize that apparently, so they stayed. So anyway, 2016 was a long time ago, and mistakes were made. Let's put it that way. And the whole country was ripe for populism.
So help me understand. So populism doesn't necessarily correlate with numbers, like the most people who see things a certain way. It's a particular kind of view, but not necessarily based on number. This is what I'm trying to understand.
Right. Well, it as I said, it's a really nebulous term. A lot of people don't like to use it, but it's supposedly candidates that are appealing to the common folk.
Yeah, but
they're going to, as you said, clear the swamp, whatever.
But there are
drain
characteristics right now of it, and one is the anti-immigration, the idea that in Europe that the immigrants are polluting what is white society.
Mm-hmm.
It's again the economic determination that somehow the economy is being perverted by this elite group of people. I think immigration is one of the real motivating factors. This notion of that this is a real foreign religion, and there's when they see evidence of praying in the streets, women wearing a unique dress, etc.
Yeah.
It is shocking.
Well, there was a fascinating article that I read, which sort of gave birth to this, and it was actually written 2017, so after Trump was in, and he was just about to become president. But it was trying to understand what this whole, what they called populist movement was all about, what was generating it. And, the common theory is economics. People are having trouble staying, paying the rent, living from paycheck to paycheck. That is true, but that is apparently because there have been lots of studies done on this phenomenon, because a lot of people are kind of alarmed by this return to, not mob rule, but, to what ends up being right-wing anti-immigrant racism, all that. And it was what they found was across the board, across economic strata, across from wealthy down to working class in Europe, especially they were doing it in Europe. It was about seeing people who used to be our colonial subjects coming to our cities and getting the same kind of treatment as us white folks. That's what it was really all about. That's what spurred this whole movement in Hungary, as you say, immigration. And it's only because it's this white resentment about being, wait a minute, they're getting the same things as us. This can't be. We're
supposed to be better. Yeah,
absolutely. So hence Hungary,
how does
everywhere throughout.
Populism relate to white nationalism?
Well,
what are the distinctions?
Not
a lot.
Not
actually.
much.
Okay.
Because that's what this article and others found, and we can see by experience here that white nationalism is a tool of our populist president. He stirs it up every time he goes out and does a rally. Oh, a rally! What an interesting word. He goes to he goes to Nuremberg, Ohio, and does a rally, and everyone's
Nuremberg, Ohio. I think that's Indiana. I'm sorry,
but it's a tool that populist, as they, as we're calling them, populist candidates, our populist president is a tool that he uses to keep people on his side, because he's going to make life better by getting rid of all those brown-skinned people somehow.
Right, and he's painting a picture for people that they relate with.
The white folks are still on top. That's
Well, they talk about the
And should be.
corruption in government and how they're going
and
to
should be.
clear up the corruption. It's interesting.
Yeah, right.
I just want to say something about
how's that going, by the way?
In fact, we found that 40% of populist heads of government are ultimately indicted for corruption.
Oh.
Yeah.
On average, populist governments have deepened corruption, eroded individual rights, and inflicted serious damage on democratic institutions. Those are a few of the things that you can expect, and that's what I say. It's Trump's playbook. I mean, did he read this, or is he an innate?
Well, he has helpers, Steve Bannon, for example, is in
that's
Europe right
Yeah,
now
yeah.
talking to Nigel Farage about setting up a new right-wing party. Even Farage has got the Brexit party. They're leading the polls in England, in Britain, in the upcoming EU elections. He's been a EU... Did I say this last week? I think I did. Member of the European Parliament for over 20 years. And, where did Farage come from? It's because no Brits ever really cared about the European elections. They never voted. So Farage got in and wanted to get out of Europe right from the start. And so he's there fomenting discontent and has his credentials as a member of the European Parliament. For 2 decades.
Well, the fascists were tied into into corporate.
Yeah.
Into
Fascism is,
corporate hegemony, if you want to call it that. So it's not like when they talk about this this anti-elitist segment. They're not. It's not really about that. Obviously, because the leaders do not. They substitute one swamp for another.
Sure. and mostly you're voting for men, usually, although Marine Le Pen is coming up in the polls. She's renamed the party from National Front in France to something like the French Assembly or something. She's up and coming. She's going to be very prominent in the polls in the next election, no doubt. They vote in people who are strong politicians who are going to erode democracy, which is, for this country, how can that possibly be? But if anyone was listening to the previous show that was just on before us about Pete Seeger and the union movement and the communists, the red baiting... Oh, dear.
I hate to say it. We had a program on anti-Semitism, but the word elite is a bit of a code word for Jew. I hate to say that, but it's true.
Sure.
You don't agree with me?
No.
Oh.
I thought
the
it
elites
was
are the governing elites, the liberal elite. They're not necessarily Jewish.
I understand
These are people
that.
with an education who talk funny,
Yeah.
right? Or who went to Ivy League schools. Sorry, this is your.
This is my. Well, let me justify that a little bit. The what we call the right-wing populist movements, they're aligned with seriously anti-Semitic groups.
Absolutely.
And their playbook is that there is this dark state that controls the government. It's centered around the bankers and people. Then the word Rothschild pops up.
Of course, but this cannot possibly be true in the Trump organization because his son-in-law, indeed his daughter, converted to Judaism.
Yeah,
his son-in-law is not Orthodox. Is he Orthodox?
He is. Yeah.
Orthodox. There you go. So that's solved. We don't have to worry about anti-Semitism in the United States.
Maybe I'm just being sensitive about this anti-Semitism, but
elite.
It is
really.
It is on the. It's on the march.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, well, yeah, no doubt about it.
And it is linked to this this nationalist movement.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Especially in Europe.
But
George Soros.
I don't think the Jews are alone in the
no, they're not
being in the scope.
No,
Muslim. Give us a call, won't you?
No, they look for somebody to pick on, and Muslims are a real, visible target.
Well, Jews have always been the target. They're always the scapegoats.
But, you do have 1 million people.
It's traditional. It's a tradition.
Well, yeah. But, realistically speaking, you have 1 million people on the border of Hungary who want to enter Europe. In some sense, it's kind of a promised land. There are jobs. There isn't war. It's a pluralistic society, and so Hungary, Hungarians, Europe, common market has you can cross borders with ease. There's no control on borders. There is people do recognize a threat to this extent, and when you have countries like Holland, for example, that has a minuscule population, 1.5 million people and Dutch people. There is this fear. And by the way, in Holland, this beautiful little country that we all, the wooden shoes and all that, there is a very strong growing right-wing populist movement.
In every country in Europe.
Who see a tremendous amount of threat in being overwhelmed.
And again, we're back to what is the threat. It's not economic, necessarily. I mean, they like to say that it's economic. It's not economic.
No, okay,
it's
I'm
not.
you.
It's not. It's not jobs. It's not that they're taking our jobs. It's because there are these different-looking people, differently dressed for the next 2 generations until they assimilate, who are claiming that they are as good as us white folks.
Okay, but there's something that you're not really taking account in, and that is there is a significant difference between Islam and Christianity.
Crickets.
Come on now.
Hang on. Give us a call, won't you, before we get back into this. 415-663-8492. This is a call-in show. Please stop us before we go too far.
Oh, come on.
415-663-8492.
Call me on what I have to say.
We're trying to talk about populism today.
So now,
Well, I'm saying one of the roots of populism, we already said, was immigration.
Yeah.
And
but not the economic effects of immigration.
yeah, but I agree. But look at this. You've got, as much as you say about immigrants to the United States coming from the south of the border, they are Catholic. Okay, so to that extent, it's actually the Mexican and Central American immigration in this country has revitalized the Catholic Church because
Absolutely, yeah.
To some extent it was on the wane, but.
You said something about Islam is different from something else. What?
I think there are significant.
Christianity. Of
I
course,
think there are
different-
significant differences.
Yeah. So
what's your point?
What's your point?
The point is that a lot of the struggles in the past, for example, liberation of women. I think that's probably one of the clearest examples. You have a misogynist, a strongly misogynist society coming. Heck, in Sweden, they have programs to teach Afghani men that it's not okay to beat their wives.
Good.
I know.
That's a good thing.
Okay, let's call me on this, okay? Please, callers.
Can we have that in the south of the states and in every other state in the union as well? That beating your wife is not a good thing.
Yeah,
that would be great. We're not going to do it because it would cost money.
Okay, sorry, Christianity and we're just so totally the same.
Well, they're based on the same books, except there's an extra book.
Yeah.
Is not Judaism and Christianity different? Isn't they different?
They're
you don't believe in the New Testament deal?
They're the same to the extent that they're both religions, and we know about that.
They're all religions, and that's the problem.
Well,
anyway.
okay, one other. Let me add what you're right, but let me build on that for a second.
Yeah.
They are. They mean in their religion to this extent that Europe at this point has become secularized. Religion has lost its oomph, and now you have a whole new fundamental. I know, but what you have is, yeah, exactly, about time. But what you have is a strongly fundamentalist religion who are in the process of reintroducing a strong religious context into Europe, and that's threatening in itself.
Well, whatever. Yeah, it's and they dress funny. I know. Is that what you're saying?
No,
and
what you're doing is you're just trying to trivialize.
They dress funny food.
That's just trivializing what I say.
They kneel on a carpet 5 times a day. That's just awful. You've heard of the word assimilation, right?
Yes, that's true. I have.
And that when immigrant populations move, let me just say, Jewish populations, for example,
I think
move to another country other than Israel or wherever they've been, they assimilate.
I agree with you. The history of the United States is one of a third generation.
Hi, Shelley.
It's a 3-generation assimilation. But Europe, by the way, does not have the history of assimilation. The United States does.
I'm not sure that's true, but anyway. Assimilation for whom? By whom?
First of all, they have not had...
The immigrant populations in Europe.
Okay,
Europe is a multicultural...
Okay. First of all, immigrant populations... Immigration in Europe is a really new phenomenon.
Yes.
Okay, so...
Well, no. Yes and no. It's a multicultural... France has always had multiculturalism.
And if you look at the experience of France in respect to their Islamic immigrants, it's a pretty grim.
Yes, we're saying that populism
picture.
is everywhere, and populism is basically racism, and that's what we're talking about today. Give us a call, 1-241-563-8492.
I think there's a blind spot, actually. It's not. I think we have a blind spot in terms of Islam. It's not considered. It's not considered something that you can talk about. And you know what else? You can't talk about Chinese influence. I'm sounding like sounding like this populist.
You're sounding like a populist. It's great.
I'm glad.
It's good to have one in the studio.
Yeah, it is. It's good to have one in the studio. There's so much money coming into the United States from China that there is a self-censorship in the university level speaking about China and the fact that China talk about totalitarian governments. I mean, it isn't. It's not laughable. It isn't laughable. You have China. 1 billion people who are coming under the grips of really.
It's a totalitarian
exactly.
state. Yes,
that's right.
They don't have elections.
That's right.
It's not populist.
So if you want to talk about,
communism.
if you want to have a round table at a university about Tibet, it's not. It's difficult to do. You cannot bring the subject of Tibet up. There's just too much money coming in from the students from China. I didn't make this up. I mean, I'm not sitting at home making. Just read about it.
Okay. So we need to keep the Chinese out too, then. Is that what you're saying? Chinese,
not at all.
Islam?
But what I am saying is that you
Muslims,
do need to recognize.
Who else do we need to keep out, Stephen?
You do need to recognize what's happening in China. You do. I'm just saying we do need to recognize it, and we do need to.
It's going to be the greatest economic power in the world because
we do need to recognize that what's happening there is presenting a significant anti-democratic.
Yes.
For 1 billion people.
Yes. Okay. And has been for 70 years.
So just want to point that out. Okay. And I want to point. Okay.
And so what? No more Chinese students because they're
no. I'm just saying the effect of it
infecting the system.
No, not at all. I'm just saying that there is not Chinese students per se. It's China. There is a negative effect of Chinese money in this country. Let's put it that way.
Corporate money.
Yes. Exactly.
How about Russian money? Are we okay with the Russians because they're whiter?
No, we're
okay.
But the Russian, I don't think we have the same Russian investment. I don't.
Is that right? The oligarchs. You think there's not?
Yeah, they're buying expensive paintings. These oligarchs.
How about the Saudis? Are they funding anything?
Yeah, let's not even get into.
How about Israel? Are they funding anything here?
Probably.
Oh, you
They're
think?
probably a major supporter
Well,
of the
then I think we should
military-industrial
keep
complex.
them all out.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it needs to be recognized. That's all. It's like, all I'm saying is this: if there wasn't something for populists to hang their hat on, okay, it's not just a bunch of people making this all up. Okay, there is a fear, there is a realistic fear
That,
in Europe. Okay,
yeah, that
Well,
brown people are coming with
wait
their
a second.
weird ways.
What we have,
and they're getting the same stuff that we are getting.
what the world is experiencing is this is just the beginning, but the world is experiencing and will continue to experience a mass migration of peoples from one place to another.
Yeah.
What we're seeing now is economic, but what we're going to see is environmental. As the oceans rise, as there more and more environmental degradation, we're going to see millions of people moving from one place to the next.
That's right.
And the countries who have enjoyed who are the economic powerhouses of the world are going to see more of those people coming to those places.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we need to get used to it, correct? Or what should we do? We should just build a wall, perhaps. They're doing it in Hungary. They built a wall.
They have, yeah, I know.
Is that the solution to your worries?
No, I don't think it is, frankly.
When those Inuits start coming down because everything's melting, watch out. They're going to be bringing blubber and
I think what we need to do,
stinky fur.
They need to reroute the Baltic to the Mediterranean and form a moat.
Hi, Shelley.
Hi there. Apparently, this conversation's a little outside of my realm today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think
I wasn't
gone beyond the subject a little bit.
wasn't raised to think this way, so it's hard for me to relate. And that's part of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. Populism, please call.
Please do
Help
call.
educate me. I
Call
am
in, won't
weak
you?
in this area.
It's we have a populist in the studio who is willing to take all calls, and this is
that's not
KWMR
fair.
90.5 FM in Point Reyes Station. Please, I'm doing it.
Oh,
Doing a
sorry.
station break.
Sorry.
This is official business.
I'm walking
This is
out.
KWMR 90.5 in Point Reyes Station, 89.9 Bolinas, 92.3 in San Geronimo Valley, streaming live online at kwmr.org. And we are supported by the Bolinas Hearsay News, serving the Bolinas community since 1974. Information at 415-868-0138 during office hours, 9 to 12 noon on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, or anytime by email at 868hearsay@gmail.com. The Bolinas Hearsay News is available at most downtown Bolinas businesses. And we're also sponsored, of course, by our wonderful listener members and by City Sewer Pumping, family-owned and operated by Butch and Mike Jamona, serving the West Marin area since 1951, providing complete septic services including septic pumping, installations, repairs, and inspections. More information on their website, citysewerpumping.com, or on their Facebook page. They're also reachable by phone at 415-663-1926. That's 415-663-1926. And we're also supported by our Calendar Club members. Thank you to all. And Rancho Nicasio, a historic roadhouse featuring live music Friday and Saturday nights and Sunday afternoons on the town square in Nicasio, offering daily lunch and dinner and weekend brunch. Inquiries about weddings, private parties, and corporate events available online at ranchonicasio.com. That's RANCHONICASIO.com. Thank you to all our underwriters, all our listener members, all our Calendar Club members, and to all our listeners right now. Give us a call, won't you? 415-663-8492. Stop this racist rant by this person who's here.
Isn't there enough meat here? Haven't we put enough meat on the table?
Okay, well, I'm going to ask a question. Or offer up a conversation about this idea or the need for some human beings to be better than, to be above others. So, my feeling is that comes out of fear. There's some kind of fear at play that causes people to feel they need to keep the walls up and keep different people out of their realm. Mm-hmm. And maybe, they're afraid that their way of life, their sense of, peace in their way of being and doing is at risk.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a very long article, and it was very interesting. And it's really about. It's obviously mostly white folks, wherever this populism is happening, except the Philippines.
Indonesia,
and it's really,
the African states,
it's such a funny thing, I mean, I think anybody, if you're reasonable, you realize that no matter what color your skin is, you can be a good person or a bad person. You can be smart, you can be stupid. You can be kind, you can be evil. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. So it's
so you have a tough
pretty
time
absurd.
Understanding, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Well, look at Chavez was a clear example of left-wing populism.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we have a caller. Hi, caller, you're on the air.
This is Corinne.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi, how are you?
Grand.
So the last comment that was made, which I totally agree, is that the whole thing about fear, it's out of fear that people react the way they are. And then, again, go back to the old Denmark, that a lot of the reason why people are, quote-unquote, happy is that the big difference between the rich and the poor is, I would say the poor, but the rich and the people that are reasonably comfortable, is that it's not that big. There's more balance. These outrageous, differences between, the two is very balanced. And I think that's, one of the reasons, if you go in that whole, the happy people, is that the balance is not the half-chose, it's not so intense, And anyway, so that was when that comment was made, that about the fear. I said, yeah, I totally agree. It's out of total fear. And then, of course, in the Scandinavian countries, you don't have that fear of living on the street and not having food and not, because, yes, you're paid into it big time, but you get something for it. Yes, the taxes are very high, but when you pay high taxes, but you also get something for it. And in this country, you don't get, I can't use bad words.
Diddly.
You can't.
I have a question about that. So in this country, we know that our country is essentially being run by corporate entities. What's the case in Denmark?
Well, I don't know the details of that, but I know that it's one of the least corrupt countries in the world. Period. In the government, and it's like there's like the old handshake thing still sometimes works. You make a deal and then you shake on it, and as a gentleman shake, and that still works in many places over there.
Right.
But I think a lot of the whole thing, all these attorneys that we have, there's good attorneys out there, but there's also the people that come up with ideas that if you're wearing a yellow shirt on a Tuesday, then you're not guilty. It's like there's so many excuses. Excuses. And yes, does that come from a lot of attorneys in this country? I don't know. What came first, the chicken or the egg? The lawsuit? I don't know. It's like one of those things. But I think there's more common trust. There's more, gentleman's shake. There's like, hey, you look into someone's eyes and you say, yeah.
Well, and the government made a choice on, they collect these taxes for the good of
of the people.
Of the people, whereas in this country, our leaders are trying to convince us that they need to spend money in particular ways because, we need to keep America safe and all this, and don't prioritize taking care of their own people.
Yeah. I mean, I just saw something on Facebook the other day, and I know that it's most likely correct information. It's kind of like you see some stuff, you say, that's not true. But because of the whole thing, and it was basically if you lose your job, you get unemployed over there, they will then pay for retraining. You will get your unemployment thing, as they retrain you until you find a job that maybe suits you better, and you get retraining. And of course, I know personally from my sister lives there. All her 3 children got their masters, traveled, studied overseas, and all of it was paid by the Danish government.
Fabulous.
Right.
I wonder how would it be if when Muslim immigrants come there and they get the same things, would that be as popular, you think?
Well,
would there be a backlash?
There's definitely problems with that. There's definitely, because for many, many years, they would just take them in and then protect them and not, like, for example, make them learn Danish, make them, they were just like, because they were so devastated because they were like refugees. Because I know my sister's oldest daughter is engaged to, he's not Muslim, but he's one of those, you could tell him one of those, I'm not sure exactly where he comes from. But he came to the country as a refugee, as 11 years old, with his family, and that was like the 5th or the 6th country that his family had fled to. Yeah. Where they came from, I'm not really sure, And he's kind of pissed at his, excuse me, I used a bad word, he's kind of annoyed with his parents because they never learned Danish, and he said the Danish government really was to fault of that because they didn't make them, so they're still sucking off the government, and so he even feels, because he's a hard-working, he went and got education and, he works really hard, but he's annoyed with his parents but that was the law at that time. Now the law is more, you got to learn the language, you got to go out there. You can't live in your little villages.
So it's
you got to join. If you come in, then got to join.
Need to assimilate. The Danish People's Party. Those guys. They're the second biggest party in Denmark now.
Right. I heard that. Yeah.
Their policy is Denmark is not naturally a country of immigration. It doesn't accept a multi-ethnic transformation of Denmark and rejects multiculturalism.
Oh, interesting.
There's some because, they've been. It's kind of like they come up because, yes, we have gotten so many immigrants in too, and it has ruined in many ways. I don't know it. I don't live there, but I hear it from my sister. It has ruined the Danishness. The Danishness has been because we're very proud of our Danishness.
Yeah, so that's another layer, another layer of this. So part of it's fear of things changing, and what was I going to say? I lost it. The purity. Yeah. This idea of purity, and we see this in a lot of different cultural groups.
Right.
Some Jewish people tend to marry within other Jewish people. It's not quite as pure as it once was.
Yeah.
Pure.
Purity. It's the purity of the race.
Right.
I don't think
that's what we're talking about right here.
Well, assimilation in the Jewish religion is probably.
I'm just saying, culturally, you see it with a lot of different ethnicities. Korean people are heavily encouraged by their families to marry Koreans, as another example. It happens in a lot of cultures. You see groups of people, they move into a community and they all live in the same neighborhood because they need each other to maintain that connection to their culture.
Sure.
Right?
And you can do that. I mean, like in San Francisco, the whole North Beach there was Italians, right? It's like they were, but I think it's just, it's a very tough one.
So it'd be great if we could celebrate our unique cultures and, not It's that fear thing again. It's like this fear that the change is going to happen that we don't want to see.
Right, or the fear of not being good enough. The fear of don't recommend the local painter to your next door neighbor because he may not then have time to go and paint your house. It's like there's still that fear. There's so much fear, and I don't have enough. I don't have enough.
Right.
And I think that fear is less in the Scandinavian countries because they are taken care of and. A Danish person, sometimes people say, they're just lazy. No, they're very hardworking people.
Yeah, but then, so the Danish government helps Danish people have a good life, but if there was an influx of another race, they might not feel quite so willing to be that generous with the newcomers.
Maybe not. I don't know.
I
don't know. I do know that they do get support in this and that, but I think it's that whole thing of like working there. I think they all just shift more in that you also got to work for it. You can't just sit there and get your check. You got to work for it, and so I think a lot of the immigrants coming in, maybe initially they are coddling them because they have experienced something terrible wherever they come from. But then, it's like you kind of stop coddling the baby, and then, okay, baby, now go out and work,
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. So, anyway, but that was kind of my thinking. And
I really appreciate your comments.
Yeah, thank you, Corinne.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Take
Bye
care.
now.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, give us a call, won't you? We still have, 10 minutes left here. 415-663-8492. Give us a call. What do you think about populism and the whole racist, anti-immigrant sentiment behind it?
I mean, it definitely makes the politician's job a little easier.
Yes.
And, fear is one of the greatest marketing tools that one can use.
Exactly.
If only we could see through it.
Here's just as an interesting quote, that we are not alone in this kind of thing. The leader of the Danish People's Party, in response to criticism from the Swedish government, said, if they want to turn Stockholm, Gothenburg or Malmö into a Scandinavian Beirut with clan wars, honor killings and gang rapes, let them do it. We can always put a barrier on the Öresund Bridge. There you go. We'll build a wall. Nowhere, certainly in Europe, is safe from this stuff. Other people getting the stuff that we are supposed to have for ourselves. That's populism. That's how populism.
Well, but
as we're describing it. That's how they get the votes.
Democracy. The effect is undermine the press. That's one of the key, which is something that Trump's been very effective at by saying, "Well, it's all the same." The mainstream media are liars. You can't trust them. And there are so many sources of news, quote unquote, today that you can find some source that will confirm your beliefs.
Anything you want.
That's right. Anything you want. There's a source, and you can quote them.
And people are not. We haven't evolved really, or there's been a diminishment in rational thought or something. That it's hard to discern what's real and what isn't anymore.
Right.
It's on with digital media, right?
Right.
With online.
Anything's possible.
Something comes up
Things
online.
can be altered.
It's got a photograph of something, and that must be true, and so people start believing.
Right.
And if our leaders say something, it must be true.
Right.
I think same-sex marriage, etc., is one of those other. All the hot-button issues seem to be included in the equation. And interestingly, when Trump was campaigning, he was in favor of abortion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember that, but he obviously changed his tune.
I wonder why. And so we tend to think of populists as being kind of not really smart, but I don't think that's it. It's just this fear thing. They know that he's lying, or not he, let me not say that he's lying, but that sometimes politicians lie, their leaders lie, or they conflate things that are not connected, or they exaggerate fears. They don't really care if he's lying or not. They understand that. That's just who he is. He's telling it like he thinks it is. But what is behind it is this fear of being engulfed by the brown wave.
Yeah.
That they're gonna get Social Security now.
Well, here's another layer, and to bring in the abortion issue. When people go about following creating an agenda that benefits their belief system to the detriment of others. Mm-hmm. If it's their belief system, why can't that be their belief system and they can allow others theirs?
Exactly.
But and again with the idea of the separation of church and state, somehow those lines are being incredibly blurred right now. And it's disturbing to me.
Definitely on the agenda. Abortion is just one of them. Actually, might even be one of the least offensive. What they've got in store in terms of I shouldn't say they, but there is this the religious agenda, not to just blur. Church and state, but education and religion.
Right.
That's a big one.
Yeah, it's weird to me that there's this feeling of, somehow your religious rights are being trampled on because everyone doesn't believe the way you do. Mm-hmm. And how does that not trample on everyone else's rights?
There was a wonderful, I admit I go on Facebook almost every day. There was this wonderful post that just laid it all out about I need to talk to my conservative Christian friends and family for a minute. If you hold the personal belief or conviction that abortion is wrong and is a sin against God's will, that is absolutely okay and understandable. There are many reasons to feel this way, not just from a theological religious standpoint, but from personal experiences. Your belief about where you stand on the moral and ethical merits of abortion are yours to have, to cherish, to speak about, and to share. They are your human rights and your constitutional rights. In our country, America is not a Christian nation. It is not a nation for Christians. It's a nation for all. This can be hard to accept. So, yes, it was all about, it's very long. Okay. Hold your beliefs, fine. You're entitled to any beliefs you like here, any religious beliefs you like, or non-religious beliefs, atheist beliefs. Thank you very much. But imposing it on other people, imposing it by law on people, especially when you're putting women's lives in danger by doing so. Ursula K. Le Guin had a wonderful thing today that she posted about she had an abortion when she was 17 or 18. It was, the usual mistake. And if she hadn't been able to get an illegal abortion at that time in Britain, if she hadn't been able to do that, she said this would have been this would have aborted my 3 later children, because I would not have gone to college. I would not have had a successful career. I would be a 17, 18-year-old single mother in a country that looked down on women like that, and there was no place for you, and I wouldn't be able to get work. I would be a completely different person. I would never have had the 3 beautiful children that I have had I not been able to do that. So, yes.
Life-altering.
Well,
and there's a friend of a friend whose fetus, more than a fetus, I'm afraid, is in very, very bad deformed shape, and just it's absolutely not viable once it comes out. So she, because she lives in California, is unfortunately going to have an abortion. But if she were in Georgia or Alabama, she'd be going to jail.
Which is disturbing for many reasons, but one being the fact that she didn't get pregnant by herself.
Exactly.
That's for sure.
Men are 100% responsible for all these unwanted births. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, dear.
It's a wide-ranging topic, isn't it? But these are all the things when you have a leader in charge who is a populist leader voted in by the although it wasn't a majority anyway, but voted in by populism by people who want to see a change and are willing to take anything that they come up with because it's different from how it was before, then all this is coming up, and it's going to come up through the Supreme Court that he is loaded up with his.
It seems what you're really saying is,
yeah.
I think what you're saying is that that what you want to see is a secular society.
It is this is supposed to be a secular country.
All right. So what happens? What would your position be if it wasn't a secular society? If all of a sudden, like it was some years ago, all of a sudden we transformed society into a fundamentalist Christian religion, and they were in a position to meaningfully impose their will.
Yeah.
So how would you feel about that?
I would feel absolutely terrible about it.
Exactly.
I'm an
To
atheist.
me, that's and it seems un-American based on what I learned about what America's about, and the fact that we were a melting pot, and we have the Statue of Liberty reminding us, that
Bring us your poor.
Yeah, that we were the rescuers, the heroes to people all over the world who were experiencing trauma or trouble of some kind. Although, coming here and, in this horrible thrashing, killing, raping, ruining way that continues.
Well,
taking over. We're just going to take over. Give it to me. It's mine.
Everything's up for grabs now because nothing really means anything anymore. Obviously, cooperation between the three branches of government is not happening. Obviously, laws don't matter. So what populism ends up doing is bringing in authoritarians. So by voting in authoritarian populist candidates, they become dictatorships. Hungary's on its way to being a dictatorship. Spain, Italy, even Denmark. Sorry to say, Denmark as well. Austria. Where else? Well, Britain, Brexit. I mean, really.
Greece. Let's not forget Greece.
Maybe. So we're back to the original question: are people smart enough to actually vote anymore
against their fear?
So the populist politicians convince people that it's going to be better for them when in fact it's going to be better for
the same people that we're actually supposed to be voting against. The populists are supposed to be the elite, the wealthy, and the corporations.
And so it's just such an awful manipulation of minds and hearts and
they're very good
souls.
at it too, and they're really good at it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for calling, people, and thank you for listening. I know you're out there. I can tell. I can feel the vibes. That was populism as we see it.
As best we can.
As best we can. We do rely on our listeners' voices to help us through these things. So please do call in next week when we'll be talking about.
Yes. Who knows?
No. It'll be something interesting.
You could always send us a message and make a suggestion.
Oh, you could do that. Yeah, give them your email, Shelley.
Go on our Facebook page. Let's talk.
There you go. Let's talk
Facebook.
on KWMR.
There you go.
On Facebook. Thanks, everybody. Bye for now.